What are you saying, gents? It is your boy Buckout Sam. We're back in today for another video. Today's video, it is my most underwhelming 11 in the Premier League right this very second. It's going to be controversial and it may upset some of you. I don't intend to, okay? Just hear me that straight away. But please smash the like button and please do subscribe before we get into it, and comment down below your thoughts and your team straight away. So let's get straight into it. In goal, the most underwhelming keeper right now in the Premier League, we have got Andre Onana. Now, Andre Onana, for me, it really hurts. I think that's the biggest problem. I have got no real affiliation to Manchester United, but the thing is with me, and last season, I was a big kind of advocate for him. I was kind of really backing him. There was moments and he was showing kind of signs that he'd really kind of improved after how badly he started off in the Champions League. But as the season went on, he started to look a really good goalkeeper. His XG kind of prevented stats where he was pretty much topping the charts to all the ends of the season. He's making some big saves. His distribution was improving. And you kind of thought, you know what? This might be going somewhere. He was a goalkeeper winning a competition. I thought he was a big part of that as well. I was thinking, okay, we're getting a bit of momentum here. And then this season, it's been really massively, severely underwhelming. He's been absolutely dreadful at times so far this season. And it's frustrating more than anything because the thing is, we know there's a good keeper in there. We saw it for Inter Milan in that Champions League run at the time we were watching him, because that's really where everyone really saw him. I'm not going to lie and say I watched the Serie A every single week, so I mainly saw him in that Champions League run, and you saw a real commanding, confident goalkeeper. As this season, we've not seen any signs of that whatsoever, and he's been a big reason and a big part as to why Manchester United have been as poor as they have been. And you think about it, it's underwhelming, the signing. You really expect a lot more, and you think kind of the way David De Gea was kind of pushed and moved away from this club, has there been that much of an improvement? And that's why I'm going for Andre Onana as my most underwhelming goalkeeper right now. Now, this formation is a little bit all over the place. So we've got 3 defenders and we've got 2 left backs and 1 centre back. But we're kind of squeezing and kind of joining this team together. You know how it is on this channel. My most underwhelming left back in the Premier League this season is Udogie. Now, hear me out about Udogie. Now, the thing is with him, last season there was discussions about whether he's the best left back in the Premier League, or even was he the best full back in the Premier League. He was absolutely incredible, bombing on down, backwards and forwards constantly, but he was creating so many chances and he was absolutely integral to that Tottenham side as to why they had such a real solid season. But then this season, I know he's had some injury problems, but even when he's been back, he's been a shadow of his former self. He's been really underwhelming and frustrating in my opinion, kind of, because the thing is with him, we know he can do it, and that's the big problem, and that's the thing I think that really hurts the most, is you've seen it. There is evidence to say that this guy is a good player, but he just hasn't worked out at all this season. So that's why we've got him in. I still think potentially there's a chance that he can come back to where he was before, but we just need to see it, and that's why I'm going as the most underwhelming. The most underwhelming centre-back in the Premier League this season for me is Jean-Claire Todibo. Now, hear me out with this one. West Ham fans may disagree with me slightly here, but for me, this guy came with the name, and it was a headline. Everyone wanted him this summer. Real Madrid wanted him. You got the likes of Juventus. Everyone was after this guy across Europe after having such a good time out at Nice, and this guy came with massive expectations, and he's been at West Ham, and if I'm honest, he started off really poorly. Now I think he's playing okay, but even still, kind of the weight that his name carried across Europe after last season's performances, I was expecting a lot more, and that's why I've kind of just gone, he's average, he's okay, he does not deserve kind of the credit that his name carries. I've been I feel disappointed more than anything. That's why I think he's been a really underwhelming signing for West Ham, and kind of really sums up kind of their summer business. All the players that we were expecting to have big names that we were expecting kind of moments from, they've shown nothing, and that's why for me he's the most underwhelming defender. Then onto the other fullback, we have got Ian Maatsen. Yes, Ian Maatsen for me is one of the most underwhelming players this season in the Premier League. I've been really disappointed with him. He kind of came with that name again. We saw how great a season he had with Borussia Dortmund last year, getting into that Champions League Team of the Year at left back, getting all the way to the final, and Villa spent over 30 million on this player. Over 30 million. And what I can't get my head around, he's only started 4 times in the Premier League this season. So I understand people say, oh, maybe he's a squad player. But for 30 million, well, let's all be honest, after the way he played last season, we've seen him play in the past, his weight and his name carries a lot, of weight. We're all expecting, because we've seen the performances, we're all, let's be honest, expecting a lot more. We were expecting him to dethrone Luca Digne. That's completely honest. This is no disrespect to him, but he has been really poor compared to as we expected. We all expected him to come in, remove Luca Digne, and really step up, and he hasn't shown that at all this season. And to be honest, yes, I know he's been playing quite a bit in the Champions League, but really, you thought he was going to be Villa's main fullback. You thought he was going to be kind of one of Villa's kind of most bright attacking players in this new side, but he hasn't really been able to break through whatsoever. He's had a bit part squad role, kind of coming in off the bench every week, which, let's be honest, is underwhelming. For 30 million for a left back, you'd expect a lot more. Now on to my midfield. The most underwhelming midfielder for me this season in the Premier League is Gundogan. So the thing is with Gundogan, I did the exact same thing, which I shouldn't have done, like all Premier League fans sort of really did. We saw the name and we all expected him to come straight back into this side and absolutely tear it apart. The old Gundogan, the guy who used to score 10 goals at the end of every season, would come in clutch for Man City and kind of win Manchester City the title on his own. But we have seen a player that is nothing like him. I'm still convinced we've got his twin brother here in the Premier League. He's been absolutely dreadful. We're seeing a really kind of old, fatigued player that you could just see has got tired legs. It really hasn't worked out. And I think, again, he really kind of symbolises and is kind of used as a moment to really show you where Manchester City are right now. They really need to have a rebuild. And I think he is kind of the main man that sums up exactly what's going on at Manchester City. We all believed he was going to come back and play well, but no one expected him to be this poor. There's a reason why Barcelona got rid of him. For once, Barcelona have done some really good business here. Like, they've actually been quite sensible, which is we can never really describe Barcelona with, let's be honest. But yeah, overall, he's got to be my most underwhelming. I've been really disappointed because he's a player I really like, and I hope we can all kind of not remember this when we talk about players and don't let this tarnish his career, because he's been an absolute incredible midfielder, one of the best midfielders in the recent years in the Premier League. But yeah, this season, he's been very underwhelming. Now, the next most underwhelming midfielder for me this season in the Premier League is Fabio Carvalho. Now, I thought Thomas Frank was going to turn this guy into a real player. We saw him earlier on in his career before he moved to Liverpool from Fulham. He's a very decent player, very effective player at times, really efficient. And I know his RB Leipzig loan move didn't really work out. The whole City move wasn't great for him last season. But I thought, you know what? This is sensible business. Brentford don't do bad business normally, but he has been absolutely dreadful. So far in the Premier League this season, he's made 3 starts. Yes, you heard me right. 3 starts in the Premier League. That just isn't good enough. Let's be honest, that is not good at all. Like, when you think the kind of money they spent on him, it was over £15 million to only have 3 starts in the Premier League, when you kind of expected this guy to break into the team, kind of being one of those kind of, didn't really know how he was going to play, whether he'd be like an Eriksen, where he went from a number 10 to being a deeper playing maker, but he's not been anything at all, and really he's kind of been forgotten about, and that's why I find him really underwhelming, because again, he's another player where we've seen he can perform, and obviously Brentford saw something when they made this transfer, but it's really not worked out, so it's definitely the most underwhelming in the midfield. Now onto the final player in my midfield, another very underwhelming player in the Premier League this season. It's Kamada at Crystal Palace. Now hear me out for this one. Kamada came from Frankfurt with Glasner. A lot of people are quite excited to see, can we kind of see the player that we once saw in the Europa League and things like that? That tricky midfielder, creating chances and things, that exciting player that kind of came over and everyone had a lot of high expectations for. But this season, again, and first season, I thought, you know what, we can ride that off, and maybe it'll take him time to kind of adjust and maybe break into this team, and with the likes of Elise going and players like that, so kind of there could be a bit of space for him to kind of work. But he's been absolutely dreadful again this season. He's made 10 starts with no goal contributions whatsoever in the Premier League. It's simply not good enough, and considering, again, this is a player that we're all quite excited to see in the Premier League when he first came, it's quite disappointing. That's why I find him really underwhelming. A player that, again, you've watched on European nights and you know he's a decent player, that we saw that at Frankfurt, but again, just hasn't really worked out for him at all. And I think now we can kind of say it's a very underwhelming player. Now we're on to the front four, where it gets a bit juicy. Yes, I have got a front four, but hear me out. One underwhelming player that I'm going to talk about now, and I don't think Tottenham fans will like me saying this, is Son Heung-min. Now, for me, this season, we've seen a real kind of depreciation in the player. When you look at him and you can see he's got tired legs, he's fatigued, and obviously his role has slightly changed at Tottenham. But we think about in previous years, who's the people that would carry this Tottenham side? Whenever Tottenham were playing poorly, Son Heung-min and Harry Kane would get them out the mud. They would kind of bring the team up, grab it by the scruff of its neck, and kind of really push on. But we've seen him we're seeing the older player now in Son Heung-min, and I think this season we've seen a massive decline in his play, and I think he's been quite ineffective at times. I know he's got a lot of assists, but kind of when we think of Heung-min Son, we kind of think of this player as an elite level player, whereas this season I think he's been quite underwhelming, and I think we're kind of really seeing him slowly take a less important role, a bit more of a squad role in this Tottenham side, and that's why we've seen other players really have to step up. That's why they're playing Timo Werner and Brennan Johnson and players like that. But I'm just being a little bit disappointed with Son this season because, again, we know what he can do, and I think it's just frustrating, but I do think it's an age thing. But yeah, very underwhelming for me. Then on the other side, I believe the captain of my most underwhelming team, it is Darwin Núñez, by far the most underwhelming player in the Premier League, and I will not have anyone argue with this because, let's be honest now, it's been too long. How many years now? Is it 3 seasons now we've been arguing that this guy could come good? He could come good. Absolutely no chance. I'm having absolutely none of it. He's been dreadful now for year in, year out. This season, we're talking about the fact that he's still not putting up good enough numbers. I think it's 7 goal contributions now in the Premier League, which is just not enough. And we've spoken about it in the past. Everyone goes on about his carnage, it's captain chaos and all of this. You shouldn't be describing a player with that much money spent on him. And I know people say you can't hold him to his value. Well, they paid that for him, so that's the only kind of metric we can use if he's not doing it on the pitch. It's not good enough. And we've seen it now, and we've spoken about it for so long. And I feel like there's a really weird narrative where everyone keeps saying he'll come good, or is chaos, his carnage. It's really good in his own way. But let's be honest, if he was playing at somebody like Crystal Palace, we'd say it's not good enough. That's the problem. But for some reason, there's a really weird narrative that we keep pushing with Darwin Núñez that he may come good. We've had 3 years now of absolute kind of moments where we've all been frustrated. He has flickers. That game against Newcastle where 2 great finishes, but then you go to the game against Villa when he missed that huge chance. He misses too many big moments. He's too ineffective, and it's like he's in his own head, and maybe he's a confidence player, but I do think he's very underwhelming now as a signing, and he needs to move on. He's not good enough for Liverpool, and I don't think he's really good enough for most sides in the Premier League. I think he's an extremely frustrating player that they should probably move on in the future. But don't get me wrong, I think he's probably would be an effective player for anyone outside the top 10, but if you were a top 10 Premier League side, you can't have a Premier League striker like that. He's so ineffective in front of goal. Next, we've got Eddie Nketiah. Now, Eddie Nketiah is one that I wanted to come good, a player that I really liked. I've always liked him at Arsenal, but for me, he's just been a really underwhelming signing for Crystal Palace. The money they spent on him, they kind of expected him to kind of come into this team and be the new player that would kind of really kind of compete at least with Mateta, but Mateta just got that place and he never has to worry. We even see Nketiah's tried playing on the left-hand side. They tried 2 up top earlier on in the season. It's just not worked out for him, and he's a player that I feel bad putting him in this team and saying that he's been an underwhelming signing because I want him to come good. Whenever I see him in interviews and things, I just really like him as a guy, and I like the way he kind of waited out at Arsenal, broke in, had a good season, then left on good terms, but it just hasn't worked out. So yeah, he's got to go in underwhelming for me. And then the final player in the most underwhelming team is Højlund. Now, Højlund is just another one where it's just really frustrating. Højlund as a striker just does my head in. 23 appearances in the Premier League this season with 2 goals. It's just simply not good enough, especially when you think of the fee they've paid. I know a lot of people say, but the thing is, he's not getting the service. We've seen other strikers in this Man United side, that youngster that came on last week in the Cup against Fulham, create 2 chances in the space of 10 minutes. You can create your own chances, and he's a prime example of that, and Højlund doesn't do enough for me. He's so frustrating in front of goal, and he's lacking confidence. I understand Manchester United aren't in a good position, but he has to play. There's nobody else to choose from. But every week in, week out, he's just really frustrating. He doesn't seem to try to make moments for himself. You see with a lot of strikers, pressing defenders, taking pot shots from distance. He doesn't do any of that, and that's where it really doesn't sit right with me as a striker, because you can make your own luck in these situations. Rather than getting your head down, lift it up and take some chances. Try and do something different. But every week in, week out, he has about 3 touches of the ball and then gets subbed off, and you've seen him get pulled off quite early many a times under Amorim. He's just simply not good enough, and I think the biggest damning kind of signing for this whole kind of situation, the sign of it, is the fact that Kobbie Mainoo was once starting as a striker. Amorim tried that, which just sums up kind of the whole situation. Very underwhelming signing, Højlund, and I still haven't seen anything that means he's going to come good, and that's where I get confused. There's not been one moment where I've looked at him in a Manchester United shirt and thought, okay, he's a decent striker. I'm still very underwhelmed by the whole signing. I don't really feel like it makes sense, and he's one of the players that Manchester United definitely need to get rid of to move on forward. But there you go. That is my most underwhelming 11 right now in the Premier League. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Hopefully you've enjoyed the video. If you haven't, I'm really sorry. But yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Let me know your teams and smash the like button, and please do subscribe. We're trying to get to 15,000 subscribers by the end of the year. That is the plan. It's a big ask, so please do it right this very second. But thank you guys for watching, and there'll be more content coming your way.